we have William Carey, and we are moving on to chapter 11, page 131, and it's called Mundabati. Mundabati. Mudnabati. I look super cute tonight, don't I?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Unbeknownst to William, at the same time, he had been desperately seeking money and support for his family in Calcutta. I just went to adjust my glasses, and they're not there. My ghost glasses. Okay.
That's kind of funny.
He was desperately seeking money, dinero, and support for his familia in Calcutta before finally moving to Dachata. An event had occurred in a dangerous channel of the Hooghly River near Malda, 120 miles to the north. The event, tragic as it was, would change the... Sorry, I have like a rogue hair. Would change the course of William's life in India. The event was a boating accident in which two English people, Robert Udney and his wife, were drowned. The couple had just moved to Dinajpur province to work with Robert's brother, George. George Udney lived in Malda, where he was commercial resident for the East India Company. This meant that he was the most powerful English person in the area. George Udney was responsible for improving agriculture and industry in the province. He was able to make loans and help start new farming and industrial projects. George Udney was also a good Christian who knew Dr. Thomas from his previous visit to India. As was the case with many of Dr. Thomas's friends, George Udney had loaned him money, which Dr. Thomas had never repaid. This had caused a rift in their friendship. However, when Dr. Thomas read of the drownings in the newspaper, he immediately wrote to his friend to say how sorry he was to hear of his brother's death. Being a forgiving man, when he received the letter from Dr. Thomas, George Udney wrote back and invited him to visit Malda. Dr. Thomas did so, and the two men became fast friends. During his visit, Dr. Thomas told how he was not doing well in Calcutta. Yes, he was making good money as a doctor, but the problem was that he and his wife were still spending more than they made. He longed for a simpler life. Well, get rid of your 12 servants. I'm sorry. I don't even have a servant. I just have a farm boy. That's my son, Tarek. I call him farm boy. I think I need to clean the camera. George Udney had just the answer to his problem. He explained that his dead brother had been given the job of overseer at one of two new indigo dye factories being built in the province. Now that his brother was dead, George had to find someone else to run the factory and wondered whether Dr. Thomas might be interested in the position. The large house and generous salary came with the job. Plus, Dr. Thomas would get a small share of the profit the factory made. Okay, if he's not good with his own money, what makes you think he'd be good at overseeing a factory? I do hope this turns out well. Dr. Thomas immediately accepted the position. Of course he did. And then asked whether George Udney had anyone in mind to run the second factory. George Udney did not, but Dr. Thomas knew just the man for the job. Papa, there's a letter for you, yelled 9-year-old Felix as he ran up the path to Mr. Short's house, waving an envelope. William was on the veranda, working on the translation of the book of Genesis that he and Dr. Thomas had begun. He smiled broadly as his son ran up with the envelope. At last, after 6 months in India, a letter. He was not sure whom he would most like it to be from. His friends on the Missionary Society Committee or his father. It was from neither. It was from neither. It was from neither. Neither.
Wait. So the person who sent the letter, his name was Neither?
No. Did you hear that? It was from neither. Who is this Neither guy? As he took the envelope from Felix and turned it over, William immediately recognized the handwriting. The same handwriting he had just been reading. that of Dr. Thomas. William tore open the letter and began to read. The more he read, the more excited he became. George Udney, commercial resident for Dinajpur province. He had offered him a job overseeing an indigo dye factory. And the job came with a house and £250 a year as salary. The salary alone was 5 times as much as William had ever earned before. William did some fast math in his head and discovered that his whole family could easily live on a quarter of the amount, leaving over £180 per year to put toward translating and printing the entire Bible in Bengali. More than that, Dr. Thomas pointed out that George Udney was a godly man who understood that William would want time off to preach to the local people and continue his translation work. And he could be there legally then. As well, if he accepted the job, George Udney would get him a 5-year permit to work in India. I'm so smart. William would no longer have to worry about being caught and sent to jail in England. It all sounded almost to be good to be true. But lots of times I feel like when it sounds too good to be true, like it's so easy that way to make money without having to trust God, then it's not the answer, because he would be relying on his paycheck and relying on George Udney for his money instead of relying on God. And then his priorities would be divided. He'd have to be working in the factory, but he should be having more time for translating the Bible. We'll see what happens here. William thought about all the wonderful opportunities the job would give him. The letter had stated that the factory would employ 90 workers, and William felt sure that he would have the chance to share the gospel message with each worker. It was a thrilling prospect. Of course, he would miss Dacheta, which was already beginning to feel like home, but somehow the job offer seemed to William to be God's direction for him and his family. Just think,